welcome to your Business Morning. It's Thursday, the 29th of November. Say we're now down to the final two sessions of the month, and we're now coasting home the final 30 days of 2018. I am Bosi Namapai. We're live to you from Lagos, Nigeria's financial capital. Let's take you through what's in the news this morning. Just a little bit of that. This is what you call the ease of doing examinations. Buhari's cabinet has slashed the fees you will be paying for your JAMB, what you call the Joint Admission Matriculation Board, NECO, what you call the SSCE, that's the Senior Secondary School Certificate Education. If you are yet to sit for your school certificate or JAMB, now this is your opportunity. The president has signed off with the cabinet to reduce these examination fees effective January 2019. The government cites higher revenues by examination agencies as a reason to relieve the burden of parents paying very high rates, as much as 11,000 naira to obtain the form for WAEC, what you call the West Africa Examination Council. So that's the big story and good news for parents out there as far as education sector is concerned. But as you know, as always, on social media, the government is receiving both praises and hard knocks for taking this decision. Meantime, yesterday, Nigeria's Honorable Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Dr. Ibe Kachiko, played host to his Saudi Arabia's counterpart at Nigeria's political capital, Abuja. Saudi Arabia's Oil, Energy and Minerals Minister, who is also the chairman of Saudi Aramco, was the Nigeria on business relationship, seeking collaboration with Africa's largest oil producer and the number 7 within OPEC+1. The discussions majorly behind closed doors focused on upstream and downstream operations, and Ibeka Chiku says he told his Saudi Arabia's colleague about Nigeria's intractable problem with the refineries. We'll have more details of that. But that meeting was very crucial because OPEC+1 is holding their final meeting for 2018 on the 6th of December. So you need to keep an eye on that. The key issue before OPEC+1, which is Russia, is how to keep the U.S. off their back and stick to their production agreements as we look at major downside in demand in 2019 and the likelihood that OPEC will cut back a little bit as the U.S. sanctions on Iran is having very little effect on the market oversupply as we speak. Meantime, oil prices heading back above $60 per barrel. A bit of that conversation later in the program in about 10 minutes. Stick around for that. Meantime, the head of the NNPC, that's Nigeria's State Oil Corporation, Mekanti Baru, yesterday signed performance contract with the COOs, the Chief Operating Officers of all strategic business units of the NNPC. The idea, according to Mekanti Baru, is to make sure that all business units, which include the DPR, the PP, MC, and the rest of them, all the business units of the NNPC should have what you called tangible and measurable key deliveries at the end of every year. And you don't just sit in an office and just get paid without reliable and verifiable performance measurements. So yesterday, Mekanti Baru got all the CEOs of all the agencies within the NNPC to sign on to this new performance contract. And at the end of the year, you have to show your performance sheet and your scoring levels. Meantime, the Statistics Office yesterday released data about Nigeria's level of imported petrol within the third quarter, July to September. The figures shows 4.37 billion litres of petrol was imported in third quarter. September was the highest month, according to the data. 1.59 billion litres of petrol were imported into the country. And finally, the World Bank is projecting Nigeria's 2018 GDP growth will be slightly below 2%. And that was in line with NPC's outlook of 1.7%, which was announced last Thursday. Remember the NPC communique last Thursday? Yes, about this time last Thursday, we were listening to the Central Bank Governor, Godwin Emefiele, and the NPC, those 11-member committee, says Nigeria's GDP for next year will be around 1.7%. Now, the World Bank says the figure will be below 2%. That's the latest forecast on Nigeria's 2018 gross domestic product. Let's talk about the economy. And of course, is the economy good, bad, or ugly? Well, it depends on how you reading the state of the economy. They're what you call economic performance ratios, GDP, inclusion, whatever you call it, interest rate, exchange rate, all the parameters you put in a basket. So when the economists and those of you who are analysts talk about these things, are we talking in absolute terms or in relative terms? So let's do a little bit of this analysis and putting these economic variables into context. Paul Alaje is joining us from our Abuja studios. Paul is a development economist. He's also a senior economist and partner at SPM Professionals. Paul, good morning. It's good to have you on the program.
Thank you so very much for having me.
Great day. Thank you. So let's understand economic performance parameters or variables. These are GDP, the rest of them. Yes.
Yeah, thank you so very much once again. When we look at economic performance of countries, there are several indicators. First, we want to look at what is happening to GDP. We want to see what is happening to unemployment. We want to see what is happening to inflation, what is happening to poverty, what is happening to health, what is happening to education, etc., etc. But so many people would like to consider this and just talk in absolute terms. What, for instance, what GDP figure is. So Nigeria GDP is 1.5% GDP growth rate. And we say that that is too low, that is too high, that is not much, that is too small, oh, that is very big. In absolute time, you might not be able to achieve a particular result. So when you see a country whose GDP growth rate is about 3% or 4%, we say, oh, such GDP growth rate is high enough or low enough until you are able to compare that with something. For instance, what is ideal? Economics will say what is ideal is your GDP growth rate should be higher than population growth rate. That on its side. Also, we want to compare what is the average performance, what is the average GDP growth rate globally. So you'll be looking at about 3%. So are you above average or below average? So you look at unemployment again, and you ask what exactly is 18.8% unemployment figure released by Nigeria Bureau of Statistics. Meanwhile, a number of persons will say what we should be looking at is a single-digit unemployment figures. But what Nigeria has today is double digits. So we ask question, why do we have double digit unemployment figures? Relatively, should be based on what we put in to create job or to provide jobs for people. Have we done more and we are getting less? Or have we done less and we are getting these kind of figures? So quickly we look at what is monetary authority saying, what is fiscal authority saying, and what kind of trade policy are we making? So for monetary authority, you see high interest rates, which necessarily will crowd out private sector. And crowding out private sector means you're going to have issues with employment. With 14% NPR, you will not blame central bank and NNPC generally, because I can say that if you try to reduce that figure, a lot of investors in Nigeria will leave. That will have implication on our foreign reserve, that will have implication on jobs, because the jobs that are there will now go down further. So where do we really need to put more effort? We need to look at what fiscal authorities say. And when we say fiscal authority, it's quick for people to say, oh, it's Ministry of Finance or it's Budget and Planning. This is within government. And within government, I mean the executive and the National Assembly. Each time it takes us so long to present budget, to pass budget, to sign budget, and to implement the budget. All of this will have implication in the kind of job we create. Why? Because the kind of economy we have been trying to create from 1960 and more recently from 1999 is such that the economy is government-driven. If government is not kicking in state, nothing is happening in the state. So we now look at federal government. Meanwhile, federal government is just some proportion of the entire government. Again, what kind of trade policy are we making? Nigeria sells crude oil, which is the main source of foreign exchange, about 90% source of our foreign exchange. Now, this is what I want a lot of people to consider. 1 barrel of crude oil is less than $70 a barrel. But to buy a phone, you spend about $1,500 to buy one phone, or $2,000. The question is, do the math. How many barrels of crude oil do you are using to make calls and to receive calls? So you can see you have about 20, you have 10 barrels of crude oil. So how many barrels of crude oil is Nigeria exporting? And then how many barrels of crude oil do we wear as clothes? So when you look at all of this, you see that our economy performance generally, not a government or two government or three government or incumbent or past government, we need to do something holistic for capacity to improve. when we claim blaming one government or past government or recent government, and we've not done the needful in terms of building capacity to expand and improve this economy, then you'll be having perhaps high unemployment rate, you'll be having high inflation rate, you'll be having high poverty rate, and so on and so forth. So, but what do we need to do? Quickly consider what so many countries have done for them to improve their economy and for economy to become one of the most significant economy in the world. And people have said, oh, China brought 200 million out of poverty in 20 years and about 350 million people in 3 decades. What did they do exactly? India became, it used to be the poorest people in the poorest country with poorest people in the world, but it's no longer. Nigeria is now with the poorest people in the world. And we say, oh, Nigeria, what has happened to you? Nigeria actually reduced poverty from 2015 to 2018 or 2017. It reduced poverty from about 120 million to about 84, 85 million people. But the rate at which Nigeria reduced poverty is lower than the rate at which India brought out people from poverty. So that's why Nigeria remained the poverty capital of the world. So what should we have done? Because when you look at the figures in relative terms, you compare it with what is happening to the rest of the world and what is the average. So when you look at all of these figures, you see that Nigeria needs to perhaps consider what so many countries are doing to reduce poverty in their territories so that Nigeria could also reduce poverty faster and have
Paul,
lower unemployment.
okay, so where we are right now, we have just a few minutes to wrap this up. If you look at other absolute analysis or relative analysis, is the economy good, bad, or ugly?
Now, when you say is the economy good, bad, or ugly, it depends on what you are looking at. There is no economy that is absolutely good. American economy has huge GDP figures, but has huge debt. The American economy has low unemployment figure, but when you look at what America and China is having back to back, then you know America is in big trouble. China has huge employment figures with low unemployment rate, but Chinese economy cannot survive without currency manipulation. So which is good? Absolutely. Which is bad? Absolutely. You still have to come to relative terms. And for Nigeria to come to relative terms, there are indicators that Nigeria should try to achieve. GDP growth rate must not be lower than population growth rate, which we are yet to be there. It is preferable for inflation figure to be single digit. We are getting close to that, just 11.2+%, which government can do more to get into. Unemployment figure should be single digit. CBN and several authorities are looking at neighborhood of 7 to 9%. I advise 5%. We are 18.8%. There's been no research. Government to fund MBS to give us new figures to see what is being done. So whether economy is good, bad, it is not the issue. It is, can we improve this economy and make it better right now and in the coming period?
Okay. Let's leave it for today. Thank you very much, Paul Alaje, development economist. Just try to clear things a little bit for us, because sometimes you get a little bit very nasty on social media, sometimes trying to discuss, was the GDP better today? Was it better today than it was 3-4 years ago? Talking in absolute terms and then relative terms there. Thank you very much, Paul Alaje, development economist and senior economist and partner at SPM Professionals Live to us from our Abuja studios. Have a great day and see you pretty soon. Where are we going next? Yes. This is the global oil markets. And of course, we got Saudi Arabia's oil minister in Nigeria looking to have some relationship and collaborations ahead of December 6th OPEC meeting. Then we have a new minimum wage in South Africa. You'd just be surprised that the new minimum wage in Nigeria, which you're talking about 30,000 naira, is a drop in the ocean if you compare it with what the new minimum wage in South Africa will be. How does it affect you? That's after the break. Stick around. 2 minutes.